chosen ones. God says a special person is coming, and you've been prepared for this. What if every season of waiting you've ever endured was never punishment? It was preparation. What if the loneliness you feel tonight isn't a sign that you're forgotten, but proof that something so significant is coming? God had to build you into someone strong enough to receive it. Have you ever wondered why certain doors closed so painfully? Why certain people left so suddenly? Why you were stripped down to nothing more than once in your life? Stay with me, because what I'm about to share isn't just encouragement. It's a mirror. And if you felt like you were being tested for reasons you couldn't explain, I need you to hear this. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared. Problem right now, you might be tired in a way sleep can't fix. You've prayed, you've waited, you've watched people around you settle into love, into purpose, into peace, while you're still standing in the same spot, wondering if your turn is even coming. Do you ever lie awake asking God, why is it taking so long? What am I still doing wrong? That question isn't weakness. It's the sound of a heart that hasn't given up, even when it feels like giving up would be easier. Here's what I want you to sit with before we go further. Delay is not denial. Silence from heaven is not absence. Sometimes the wait itself is the workshop where God shapes you into the person your future was designed for. Development. Why the waiting season feels so heavy. Have you noticed how waiting always feels longer than it actually is? Time stretches when you're standing still, when nothing visible seems to be moving. But here's a question worth asking yourself. What if nothing visible is moving? Because everything invisible is under construction. Foundations are built underground, out of sight, long before anyone sees a building rise. Your character, your healing, your discernment, these are being poured like concrete beneath the surface of your life right now, even when it feels like nothing is happening at all. The pain that was actually protection. Think back to a relationship or opportunity that ended in heartbreak. At the time, it felt like loss, like rejection, like proof that you weren't chosen. But ask yourself, honestly, where would you be today if that door had stayed open? Sometimes what looks like abandonment is actually redirection. Sometimes the person who left, the job that fell through, the plan that collapsed, those were never meant to be the ending. They were course corrections, keeping you from a future that would have cost you your peace. Doesn't it make you wonder how many closed doors in your life were actually acts of mercy in disguise? Why you had to be broken before you could be built? Nobody talks honestly about this part. The breaking, the seasons where you lost yourself, where you questioned everything, where the version of you that existed before simply couldn't survive what was coming next. Have you ever noticed that the people who carry the deepest peace are usually the ones who walked through the deepest storms? Brokenness isn't the opposite of blessing. Sometimes brokenness is the soil blessing grows in. What if the very seasons you're ashamed of were actually the ones preparing you to receive something you couldn't have handled before? If this is resonating with something you've lived through, comment, I understand this below, because naming your journey is the first step toward trusting it. And if you want more truth like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss where this goes. The danger of settling too soon. Let's be honest about something painful. There were people who wanted to stay in your life, opportunities that looked good enough, situations that seemed like relief from the loneliness, but something in you knew it wasn't right. Have you ever felt an unexplainable resistance to something that looked perfect on paper? That resistance wasn't confusion. That was discernment being sharpened in you. God doesn't just prepare the special person who's coming. He prepares you to recognize them, and to recognize what isn't them, even when everything around you says settle. Why comparison steals the peace you've already earned. It's hard not to look around. Friends getting married, co-workers announcing new chapters, timelines moving forward while yours feels frozen. Do you ever ask, what's wrong with me that this hasn't happened yet? But here's the truth, comparison never tells you. Nothing is wrong with you. Every story unfolds on its own timeline, and rushing your chapter to match someone else's would mean skipping the very growth that makes your story worth telling. What if your timeline isn't slow? What if it's simply sacred, unfolding exactly the way it needs to? The quiet ways you've already changed. Think about who you were 3 years ago. The way you handled disappointment then versus now. The way you set boundaries. The way you trust your instincts. The way you no longer chase people who don't choose you. Can you see it? You have already become someone new. That transformation didn't happen by accident. It happened through every tear, every prayer, every moment you almost gave up but didn't. You are not the same person who started this journey, and that's exactly the point. Why preparation always comes before provision. Here's a pattern worth noticing. In every meaningful story of transformation, the preparation always comes first. Skills are built before opportunities appear. Character is refined before blessings arrive. Readiness is cultivated before the door opens. Have you ever wondered if the reason it hasn't arrived yet is simply because the preparation isn't finished? This isn't about punishment. It's about protection, both yours and theirs. What if this season is less about waiting for someone else and more about becoming someone whose presence will be a gift rather than a burden? If this thought is landing somewhere deep in you, subscribe now, because this channel exists to walk with you through exactly these truths. Learning to trust the unfolding, not just the outcome. We tend to fixate on the destination, the relationship, the reunion, the special person. But what if the real transformation isn't in what's coming? It's in how you're learning to walk while you wait. Have you noticed the peace that comes when you stop demanding answers and start trusting the process itself? Trust isn't believing everything will happen the way you imagined. It's believing that whatever happens, you'll be equipped to handle it. Because of who you're becoming right now, in this very waiting room. The strength hidden inside your solitude. Solitude gets a bad reputation. We treat alone time like a problem to be solved, a gap to be filled quickly with anyone or anything. But ask yourself, what have you learned about yourself in the quiet that you never would have discovered in noise? Some of the deepest self-awareness, the clearest boundaries, the strongest sense of identity are forged in solitude, not in crowded rooms. What if this alone season isn't loneliness at all? What if it's actually intimacy with yourself, preparing you for intimacy with someone else, recognizing readiness? When it finally arrives one day, and I mean this sincerely, you'll look back at this exact season and understand why it had to happen this way. You'll recognize the special person, the right opportunity, the aligned moment, not because you got lucky, but because you were finally ready to receive it without fear, without desperation, without losing yourself in the process. So let me ask you this final question. What if you stopped asking, when will it happen, and started asking, who am I becoming while I wait? Because the moment you shift that question, everything about this season starts to feel different, lighter, purposeful, sacred, even. Closing, if anything in this video touched something true in you, I want you to know, you are not behind, you are not forgotten, you are not being punished for something you don't understand. You are being prepared, quietly, patiently, intentionally, for something and someone your current self couldn't have received without the growth you've walked through. This waiting season is not empty. It's full of everything you'll need for what's coming next. If you're ready to change your life, to trust the process instead of fighting it, to become the version of yourself capable of receiving what's meant for you, then subscribe to this channel right now. This is only the beginning of a journey we're walking through together. Because you weren't overlooked. You were chosen. And you've been prepared for this all along.